Pureview. That's a name and technology that's been attached to some of the most iconic camera phones of all time, including greats such as the Nokia 808 Pureview and Lumia 1020. Those phones came out 6 to 7 years ago, and we've personally seen how they still put up a strong fight and possibly even overthrow some current smartphones in the camera game due to the sheer level of innovation and hardware that they pack. But since then, smartphone cameras have changed their approach from being purely hardware driven to being driven both by hardware and software. So when Nokia decided to bring back Pureview branding to smartphones, it knew that they had to focus on both fronts for it to be the best camera possible again. This is Sandeep from RevAtlas, and let's take a look at the review of what could perhaps be the best camera phone on the market, the Nokia 9 Pureview. This video is brought to you by Zest Money. Visit zestmoney.in and avail instant loans to buy your favorite smartphone. It's an entirely digital process with high approval rates, seamless EMI payments, and even zero pre-closure charges. But the best part of all is the 0% interest on most merchants, and you don't even need a credit card or a credit score either. Just because Nokia has decided to up the software game doesn't mean that they haven't invested in a good hardware setup. Of course, it isn't your usual huge sensor that we saw on older Pureview smartphones, but rather the Nokia 9 Pureview features a 5-camera array at the back as well as a time-of-flight depth sensing camera, so you can also say that it has 6 cameras at the back for bragging rights, but most people including Nokia refer to it as a penta-camera setup. The Nokia 9 features an array of 5 12MP 1x2.9 inch sensors with f1.8 aperture, 1.25 micron pixel size, of which 3 are monochrome and 2 are RGB. All the sensors work together to capture as much light and information as possible, and you get a resulting image with 12 megapixels of resolution. The technology was developed by Light, and although it doesn't nearly have as many lenses or sensors as the L16 camera, the Nokia 9 Pureview can do some serious computational magic. Since there are 3 monochrome cameras as well as 5 cameras working together to create an image, the dynamic range on the Nokia 9 Pureview is absolutely stunning. Sometimes the image stacking also takes multiple frames from each of those sensors, and the result is a claimed dynamic range of 12.4 stops, which is previously unheard of in a smartphone and more or less on the territory of high-end DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. Of course, to use this dynamic range to its full potential, you would need to capture in RAW and then process the image. In fact, Nokia itself encourages you to do so and suggests using Lightroom Mobile for doing the same on the fly, and I personally prefer Photoshop Express to do it on the phone since I'm more used to the layout, but you can make do with either or even open up the images on your laptop or desktop for processing later. You can also make use of the Photos app for a built-in editor, and the raw DNG files, despite having only 12 megapixels of resolution, are in and around 40 megabytes in terms of size, which is pretty insane, but just shows that the amount of information being captured is truly high. Keep in mind that the phone has 128 gigs of storage that is non-expandable, and capturing JPEG plus RAW will quickly fill that up. So if you're a shutterbug, please do make sure that you have some OTG drive handy or sufficient cloud storage to offload that content onto, especially if you're traveling. The JPEG files with in-camera processing are decent, but they truly don't make use of the full potential of the hardware. They also have over-sharpening and higher levels of noise than what the phone should be capturing with such a setup. Having 3 monochrome cameras means that you can capture wonderful true monochrome images with better dynamic range and contrast. But the JPEGs again have over-sharpening, which is evident when pixel peeping. In terms of low-light performance, the default JPEGs are quite unimpressive. They are underexposed and usually have a lot of noise as well, even with all the image stacking going on and monochrome sensors capturing a lot more light than normal. You can improve the quality by capturing in RAW and then tweaking the image, which gives a more usable frame, albeit with more noise perhaps, but the best result would be to use a long shutter along with a tripod or stabilizer or some sort of support, which isn't always available, hence why it isn't the perfect tool for low light photos. Coming to the portrait mode, you can capture some stunningly beautiful shots with it. The results when it works are often better and more natural than even the Pixel devices. The reason I say when it works is that at times the bokeh mode gets the edges wrong and also the subjects. This is something that's truly software based, so it can be rectified, but boy is it amazing when it works. The camera maps around 1200 layers of depth information as opposed to around 20 that even the most advanced camera phone from any other competitor can do. What this means is 3 things. Number 1, the blur is more authentic than normal, and the depth of field that you get is more akin to what you would get from a larger sensor camera. Number 2, the focus can be adjusted to a larger extent after capturing the photo. Number 3, the most important one perhaps, is the ability for it to apply blur onto objects or subjects even quite far away, and more importantly, very close by. Take the sample for instance. These pebbles are all grouped together and the difference in depth between them is 5 centimeters at most. Most camera phones would not be able to apply a successful blur to the stones below, let alone one that looks so good. The Nokia 9 makes it look so easy, and it can also blur out the foreground and focus just on the background, which isn't always needed but is something that is cool and might just help in some scenarios. We also found out that capturing the photos with the depth information on in Pro mode or regular photo mode often works better than capturing just in bokeh mode because it allows you to tweak it after capturing. All you need to do is use the built-in editor using the Photos app, and you can adjust the focus, the blur between background and foreground, as well as even go for some selective coloring if you're in for the mood. The front-facing camera is a 20 megapixel f2 unit which offers fairly good quality photos but with a tendency to blow out the highlights. The photos have good sharpness and detail in good lighting conditions, but in low light they get softer with more visible noise, but still not too bad. Portrait mode does a decent job as blurring, but the edge detection isn't perfect and isn't as good as the rear camera. In terms of video, the phone records up to 4K content using both the front and rear cameras, which it should considering how Nokia is also trying to give the same experience on both sides. In terms of video quality, they're both excellent with an average bitrate of around 42 megabits per second and you get good detail as well as natural colors, but the dynamic range is poor, particularly in highlights which are easily blown out. The other issue is in terms of video stability since there's no EIS on either end and the videos are shaky. If you want EIS, you have to go for lower 1080p resolution video mode, in which case you get much more stabilized content at the sake of lower video quality and resolution. You can zoom in on videos digitally too, but the quality is pretty poor. The impressive part of videos, however, is that the Ozo audio which can be customized to your liking. You can choose to capture audio either in surround or predominantly from the front or the back of the phone. It works really well as you can see in this clip. So this is the front-facing camera of the Nokia 9 Pureview, capturing 4K video. There's no EIS on board, but what you can actually do is play around with the audio a bit. So right now it's in surround mode. I can change it to the rear-facing mode, so now I'll pick up audio only from the rear of the phone. And again to the front, now again to surround. Let me know what you guys think about the overall quality of the video and especially audio, considering that Nokia is giving special emphasis on this particular aspect. So this is now full HD video with the front facing camera. It's currently in the surround mode for audio. I'm going to change it to the front and now again to the rear. And let me know if you find any difference in the video quality apart from the resolution itself from 4K to 1080p and vice versa. Now again back to the surround mode in terms of audio. All in all, the Nokia 9 Pureview is a mesmerizing smartphone when it comes to its photography capability. Purists will enjoy it, but for an average user, this might not be the ideal choice for following reasons. Number one, it really needs to be used with raw capture to get the full capabilities. The JPEGs are fine, but they don't really unlock the true potential of the sensor and the images aren't too great with the in-camera processing. This means that for anyone who doesn't know or isn't willing to process raw images, the phone might not be very helpful. Secondly, the phone takes too long to process photos, especially if you turn on depth mapping. Sure, the phone is capturing 1200 layers of depth information and also tons of information even without it turned on. But it takes a lot of time to process an image, so this isn't ideal for a run and gun scenario. The image processing continues even if you close or minimize the app, but it doesn't continue if you lock the phone. The processing time could also be due to the Snapdragon 845 chipset which is being used, which although is optimized, isn't as fast as what we expected. Maybe the story wouldn't have been much better with the Snapdragon 855, but it would have surely been a bit better at least. Hopefully software updates minimize the processing time. Third, low-light capabilities aren't great, and unless you're planning to use a tripod or some sort of stabilizer and capture long exposure shots, the results won't be pleasing. The last point is that while there are 5 cameras, all have the same focal length, which is for a reason, but unless you're processing the raw files like we mentioned earlier, the benefits don't get translated and a regular consumer may be better benefited from having a multi-camera setup with different focal lengths. In a way, the Nokia 9 Pureview is perhaps very similar to the Pixel 3 XL, which is my other favorite camera phone, but also quite the opposite. Pixel 3 XL makes it simple. It aims to give the best possible output from a camera in any situation at any time, and the end result is something that requires barely any post-processing. The Nokia 9 Pureview, on the other hand, aims to give the best quality output possible as well, but requires post-processing certainly if you want to get the best quality possible. In terms of still photography, the Nokia 9 Pureview is probably the best out there, but one that's aimed at professional or enthusiast audience. Nokia, with their comparatively limited resources, tried something very different and, to their credit, achieved most of what they promised and is miles ahead of what Samsung or Apple smartphones offer in terms of photography. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and share the video as well. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you visit zestmoney.in and avail instant loans to purchase your dream products, be it a smartphone, electronics, furniture, and more across Flipkart, Amazon, and more than 100 other partners.